Our core value is relatively simple. It's this. We believe that everybody deserves clean water. And so the way that we believe that's best accomplished is through innovation and teamwork. And so in that spirit, we invited some of our friends to join us and sort of talk about their perspectives on innovation in water. We've got Frank Slovenik, the co-executive director of Global Waterworks. We've got Damian Luna, the principal engineer for Albuquerque Bernalillo Water Authority. And we've got John Nielsen, the administrator for DeSoto Waterworks. So Frank, what are the issues being discussed in your community?
So Global Waterworks, like it says, is global. We're in 94 countries and every state in the U.S. So there are three major topics that are being discussed to the highest degree. The first one is harmful algae blooms. Certainly it's an issue. EPA pointed out in a report about 6 months ago that's an issue in all 50 states. And then just recently the GAO came out with a report putting together a work group in the government to address harmful algae blooms. So not only monitoring and researching, but from our perspective, we're looking at preventing and remediating. Number two, right along with what the gentleman from Mueller said this morning, is cybersecurity. And that's a global issue because you have so many endpoints in your business, whether it's handhelds by employees or whether it's smart meters at the home. There's so many entry points that are at risk for cybersecurity. Then the third thing that people are talking about, and I think you can understand a lot of reasons for this, is point-of-use water. Water filters at the home, water filters in the business. We all understand the infrastructure challenge. We also understand there's thousands of miles of pipe in the last mile delivering water that's as lead. PFAS is an issue, and certainly pharmaceuticals along with other metals and other chemicals that are issues. So point-of-use water filters and filtering water at the home and at the business is a key topic of discussion.
All right. Excuse me. So Damian, what are some of the lessons learned as a large system with seasonally changing source water?
So living in an arid environment, and we faced some challenges just recently, past 3 years. We had record drought. One of the issues with drought is that a surface water system such as ours can no longer pull water from the river. So we were mandated at one point to shut down our facility. And one of the lessons learned is during a period of shutdown for 3 months, it has some unintended impacts to our surface water treatment because it's a long-term duration shutdown. And so we had to, at startup, had some issues with water quality, and we had to learn how to deal with that situation. So what we did was we took a very good look at some of the impacts and how to plan for it in the future because we knew that drought wasn't going away. And so we had to two more seasons after that where we implemented some strategies on how to protect our surface water treatment plant from those water quality issues. And I think it's always just an approach of lessons learned, how to take those lessons, implement them into SOPs, and how to deal with it in the future. And we were successful. So the lessons we learned during the first long-term shutdown, we applied, and when we had startup at the second season, we no longer saw those water quality issues. And again, it's taking what you know at that time and applying it to the future.
All right. So John, what are some of the operational challenges that you've overcome to be able to deliver great water to your customers?
Well, our system, we actually produce twice as much water as our plant was originally designed for. And when your production exceeds your capacity, it can lead to a degradation of your quality. And that not only goes for a physical water plant, but also for each individual in here. I compare the the human body to a water plant, and a water plant has a personality. If you don't think a water plant has a personality, you have never operated a water plant, okay? Two water plants side by side using the same water can work entirely differently. So if you're working 10 hours a day for 7 days a week, your production has exceeded your capacity. Same thing with your water plant, okay? And I'm an old guy, so I watch Gunsmoke all the time and all the old cowboy shows, and if you do that, you know most of the advertisements on there are going to be for some kind of vitamin or something to help your body. And so they tell you all these good things, and all of a sudden, then they have all these side effects that can come along. And you listen to some of these side effects, and you say, why in the world would I want to take that medicine, okay? Well, when you have a water plant that's stressed, you have to think of the same thing in the term of chemicals. Okay, you might inject a chemical into your water plant that does one thing, but all of a sudden you're going to have a side effect somewhere else in a plant that's stressed like that. And a prime example of that is in Louisiana. Our chlorine residual went up by 2.5 times a couple of years ago when we had an amoeba outbreak. And all of a sudden the health department says you've got to have more chlorine in your water system. And that was the end of their sentence, okay? The result of that was all of a sudden we had trouble with DBPs. So you have one thing, but you have a side result of that. So that's especially true when you have a plant that's stressed as much as ours is. We're in the process of enlarging our plant by twofold, so it'll be a lot better. But that's some of the things you have to think about. You know, that water plant is an organism, and if you push it past its limit, then you are going to have some individual stresses on that thing that may not can be overcome with just a normal chemical. You want to look at a chemical that maybe does two things, and you have to look at what it's doing at the plant, what's it going to do out in the field with a huge distribution system like we have, what's going to be the end result of it over there. So you have to think long-term and long effect for everything you do in a plant.
John, what do you think are some issues that currently are not getting enough attention within the industry?
Well, there's going to be more attention on it more and more, but the secondary standards, we just really haven't paid enough attention to those. We have, you know, you may have a discoloration in your water. That's a secondary standard. You won't get wrote up for it, but you'll sure get a lot of comments on Facebook and everything about it, won't you? Okay? So if you can get rid of those, I think we need more and more attention on these secondary standards, taste and odor, and because they're coming to be primary standards before long. And fortunately, some of the government agencies are putting some money into that to help us with those things. But we really need to pay more attention to those secondary standards, because somebody is waiting in a big office somewhere to press a button, and all of a sudden they're going from secondary standards to primary standards, and we're going to have to meet those standards.
Damien, you just keep it going down. Yeah. Same question to you.
I would say for a lot of communities, water conservation is huge right now. I don't think that a lot of people thought that climate change would be so fast and significant as it is right now. I know that our water system has a water conservation plan that's been really successful over the last couple of years, Water 2120. And so what that is a holistic approach to conserve what you have. Our aquifer was, years ago, was depleting. So Water 2120 took that into account. How could we recharge our aquifer so that it was no longer depleting? The other goal was to not acquire any more water rights to address the issue. We wanted to use what we had, so again, we took the surface water treatment facility and started recharging the aquifer through ASR. Aquifer storage and recovery. We started banking water using the existing aquifer that we had by taking the water we produced at our surface water treatment plant and putting it back in. We're testing those wells right now to produce water. I've been monitoring emails, and we're pulling successfully that water that we banked and putting it back into our system to supplement this period of high drought. So.
Yep. Same for you, Frank.
So there's two things that I think that we could talk about. The first one is connecting people with their water. All the great work that you do in your utilities, not enough people know about it. because they're not connected to the water. It's free, and they turn on their faucet, and it's there, right? So we believe in education, and we've launched an education program to start actually we're going to start it in Sunday schools, is teaching children about their water, the water cycle, what goes on with the water. I live in Hartwell, Georgia, a small community, Hart County, and the director of Public Works is going to be involved with us there, and then this is going to go national. So connecting people with their water through education, understanding the cycle, where it comes from, and all the fine work that's done by water utility professionals across the world. The second thing, and it was touched on a little bit earlier this morning, is water workforce development. Water is, we are working very hard with a number of organizations, partnering with them, to bring the next generation into water. What is not known out there is you are probably in the most exciting industry on the planet. You affect society, you affect healthcare. Many water workers call themselves healthcare professionals. You are. Health is in water. And so and economics. I live on Lake Hartwell. Let me tell you, something happens to that lake, economically, it hurts. Something happens, and you hear Flint, Michigan, or whatever, it's an economic disaster. So it is so important that people get connected with their water, and then two, bringing the next generation in and understanding what an exciting field it is for them to have a full and very, very rewarding career. We're working hard to do that.